Hey, how's it going everyone? Welcome to the video, and this is the second and latest release from the series Jigokuraku, or Hell's Paradise in English. And now this is Yamada, Asaemon, Sagiri. Definitely been a figure I've been looking forward to. She was originally teased as a silhouette with Gabimaru back in December last year at Jump Festa. So we will get a bit of a comparison between the two releases later in the video. Now today there's been lots of releases. We've had Indiana Jones, Orochimaru, Griffith from Berserk. So I have put out reviews for those figures, so please do go check them out as well. I mean, if you like Jigokuraku, you'll like Naruto. You mean ninjas. Too cool. What's not to love? But yeah, one thing I do love about this figure, come back to it, is the packaging. That lovely paint splatter effect which you see throughout the series and the manga covers as well. On the back we do have a nice selection of images showcasing the expressions and the figure itself. Overall very standard. Basically the same size box as Gabimaru, but a little thicker. I guess it is due to the flared design for her legs. But yeah, anyway, let's pop it out of the box and we can check out those accessories. Okay, so in the center we have Sagiri herself. She already has the sword or the handle attached to the sheath, but she does come with the drawn katana as well. She does have 4 additional faceplates. We have the neutral face on her already, a kind of a happy smile, the kind of a teeth gritting one it looks like, bit of a sad look, and then the eyes closed, slightly blushing look, which is really nice. She then has a couple of additional pairs of hands. We've got some loose ones ready to kind of grip the katana to draw it, as well as hands to hold onto the katana in either left or right hand. So very straightforward, pretty basic release. This line is very similar to that of Jujutsu Kaisen, where I feel like everything is pretty, not really basic, but minimalistic. However, it seems like they're doing a bit better job with Jigokuraku by giving us more facial expressions, or at least a varied range of expressions, which is great. But anyway, let's pop it out of the packaging and we can check out the overall finish. Okay, so as she swings around here, we can check out the overall finish, which is a nice off-white or subtly grey colour for her overall clothing, which is nice. The red is a bit of more of a neutral matted or desaturated red for the waistband, which is nice, and same for her hair tie. Her hair does have a lovely brown colour, which is nice, and I like how it kind of flows out. We can see different strands of her hair, which is really nice, instead of just being one solid piece of plastic, which is cool. The sword is actually on a peg, so you can swivel it up and down, which is nice. The colouring for her inner clothing, the red, seems like it's a little bit darker compared to the rest of the red on her body, which is actually quite nice. I can't remember exactly what it's like in the anime, but having a subtle difference there is nice. Actually, yeah, you can see the inner part of her clothing there, which is that darker red. So the little bit contrast is nice. And then might just swing it back around. The bell on her top there is really nice, actually, a lovely little bit gold, which really picks up the light wonderfully. Same with the gold on her katana, which is nice. I feel like this is a very simple release. Even just seeing some of the joints, it is a little bit more basic. I wouldn't say outdated, but definitely quite simple. Partly due to, I guess, the design. It's a lot harder with the more of the traditional clothing. It does make it a little bit harder with those extremely flared legs. We've seen it with the bleach figures already so far. I feel like Denji did a good job. Ichiko just had too many pleats, but the aesthetic for this one I think looks really nice, especially with the inner clothing showing through at the top of the hip there. But so far, I think just when you look at this character, it looks really nice. It looks like it from the series, which is great. So yeah, let's move over to the articulation now. So starting with the head, going forward is really good. I mean, just check that out. She has a great range of motion going forward, and she can look up okay, but it's definitely not quite as good. I think that is due to the range of her neck, and the deep V allows her to look forward a lot further. But yeah, the left and right swivel is all good. The tilt is fantastic. So overall the range in the top of the head is nice. The neck on mine is quite loose. I'm not sure if that is going to be the same with all of them, but I feel like being slightly loose is a bit better than being too tight. It definitely makes it nice to move around at the very least. Now moving into the shoulder range here, again the peaks feel really nice. It does move up and around and feels really nice and smooth. If we saw this up and around to the front, she does have a decent range of motion where the arms can basically almost link up. So that is definitely nice to see. I think if we can pull it out a little bit more, no. So you kind of have to play around with the placement of the joint to get the most out of it. But it definitely does feel really nice. We also have the upper bicep swivel, which is nice. And then the elbow joint here, which is quite unique. Swivel it around. There we go. It's a decent range of motion. It's quite interesting. You can kind of angle it around so the peg will then bend in the direction of the indentation to give further range. Though it will open up a bit of a gap, but depending on the angle, that is definitely not an issue. The wrist peg is pretty exposed, so the range of motion is nice and not hindered. And do we have some swivel? Yes, we do. The lower arm will also pivot on the inside of her clothing, which is cool. And then as we saw earlier, the sword will pivot up and down on that peg as well, which is cool. Now coming into the upper region for articulation, just under the bust region there, she does have some motion forward and back, which is quite nice. And again for the swivel on the top part as well as the lower area is really nice. So I think that's maybe a soft rubber. Yeah, so that is soft rubber. So if you push forward, it will subtly bend down, which is quite nice, and same for going back. So surprisingly, the top part, even with this thick band for the center torso area, she does get a decent range of motion there, which is nice. And at the very least, everything does swivel and feel nice to move around. Now coming down to the upper hip area, I feel like this is where the figure definitely gets a little bit on the basic side. The design itself looks quite nice, but we don't have the upper hip swivel, which is a little bit of a shame. But going out, it's definitely a bit better than some figures. A little bit more range could have been nice, or at the very least that thigh swivel. But the joints feel at least nice and smooth, which is good. You can subtly lift it up and down a little bit as well. So if the gap is quite big, just try pushing it and it should slot up. Now for the knee joints itself as well, this one is pretty chunky, but we get a nice decent angle going on there considering the shape and size of the flared legs. The peg on the back definitely sticks out quite a bit. And then going forward, it's somewhat decent, but again we are kind of limited by the thickness of the leg, and going back there's basically no yeah, unfortunately basically no real backwards motion, very minimal. Coming down to the ankle, a nice simple peg in there, everything will move around and it does move freely, and the toe tip is quite good. So yeah, I definitely feel like the top region of this figure is really good, and the lower area definitely a little bit disappointing. It is definitely a shame, though. I mean, I understand. I don't think female characters are a big seller for Tamashii based on the fact that we hardly ever get them, and they're very few and far between. So I'm guessing compared to male characters, which I feel most of the customers that buy Pro Tamashii figures are going for, yeah, they have to kind of keep the cost down a little bit more on these figures. So which is a bit of a shame. I would definitely love to see a updated version of this figure with more range of articulation in the lower area. But definitely the top area is looking really nice. Not sure how much this design will hinder posing yet though, haven't had a good play around, so we'll definitely see how that goes a little bit later. So moving over to the faces, I think the colouring and the design for eyes are really nice. We do have a lovely brown colour coming through which matches her hair beautifully, and then the subtle line work for the lip is working good as well. Now to change the faceplates, we should just be able to pop the bangs off like so, and then that will give us access to the faceplate which will then just slot right off. We then take the new faceplate, slot it on, and then we can reattach the bangs, which is super easy. And yeah, this is the second face, which is that mouth open, happy look. I think this one's lovely actually. It's definitely a nice little bit emotion for her, and the little bit triangle mouth open look is great. And we do have some extra detailing on the eyes in there as well, which is great. So yeah, definitely digging this face so far. The next face is that stern look one, and this one's really good. She definitely looks a little bit miffed. You don't want to get on her bad side when she's looking like this, but the little bit shape of the lip is nice, and again the way the eyes just angle down is perfect. Next up is that subtly, exhausted, exasperated look, or maybe from when she was poisoned. She even has that kind of a sweat drip on her cheek as well, which is really cool. But again, nice range of emotions with this figure so far. And then finally we have the eyes closed, little wee red tint under those eyes as well on the top part of the cheek with that little wee quivering lip. It's definitely an awesome little wee face. I imagine she's just like dreaming of that nice onsen, or kind of escaping this hellish island that they're trapped on. Okay, so I've switched out the hands and put her in a pose where she's about to draw her sword. Overall not too bad. I guess the leg design definitely does make it a little bit hard to pose. I feel like compared to some figures, I mentioned this in the posing video I did for One Piece recently, some figures are super easy, some medium, others are harder. I definitely put Sagiri here in that medium to hard range just due to the legs. It definitely makes it a little bit harder, so you have to play a bit more with the angles as well as the upper articulation to try and get her looking a bit more natural. I think the arm for this one is definitely up a little bit high at the moment, but definitely gives you an idea of how she looks. She definitely looks really badass when she's about to draw her sword to take down the enemy. So I've got a little bit basic version of the pose in the box, which I love with them back to back. But yeah, I feel like a pose like this works really good with Sagiri, and ones where she's standing a little bit more, where you're not really spreading the legs out too far. But base standing poses, anything like that, I think will work really well with this figure. But yeah, she looks badass with that sword. I'm not sure if I mentioned earlier, but the hair is actually on a peg as well. But yeah, so you can swing this round and adjust them both individually as well, I believe. Yeah, there we go. So you can mix and match to try and get the desired look that you're after. Okay, so I've also got it set up with those open hands, just going in towards her chest with that eyes closed face, which I think these two paired beautifully well together. The happy face is definitely working really well. I mean, I can imagine this one here in a nice casual stroll or walking one, maybe with Gabimaru in the distance or something along those lines. It could work really well together. So as mentioned before, she does come with a left and a right hand. In this case, the left one I've got attached for holding the sword, which is really good. So it's nice you can mix and match which hand she holds the sword in, and also pair them up with a different faceplates like this one here. Maybe she's kind of defeated again, feeling those effects of those poisonous bugs on the island. She's starting to stumble back, and now she has that kind of sickly look on her face, and she's lowering her sword down. So you can play around with the different effects to create the image, or at least the situation that you're after. Okay, so for a size comparison, we have the Full Power Goku, Kid Naruto, and Gabimaru as well. I definitely feel like Sagiri is looking really cool. I think maybe in this series the size difference is a little bit more, but I feel like if they made Gabimaru any smaller in the, in the figure lineup here, the articulation would diminish just a little bit too much. And again, if they made Sagiri a bit too bigger, she'd look a little bit awkward with the sizing. So yeah, overall I feel like these two are looking pretty good together. Definitely drop a comment below what you think about the size comparison for Sagiri compared to Gabimaru, and even to other figures as well if you were planning to mix and match. Okay, let's jump into the pros and cons for this release. I guess a little bit disappointed, but starting with the pros at the very least, I think aesthetically she looks really nice. I love the design, the colouring is lovely, the upper torso articulation is great. I love how the hair, hair tie and the ponytail can move independently, which is great. And then coming down to the, actually before I jump into the cons, the facial expressions are really good. I love the fact we get kind of basic, neutral, happy, kind of lovey-dovey, kind of, you know, daydreaming look, the kind of pale, sickly look, and then the stern look as well. So the range of expressions is great. The sword is nice, the way it attaches, you know, pretty standard with most recent releases, which is cool. And how this is kind of soft rubber as well is really nice. And you know, the colour separation from the white, red, and even the gold bell is great. And she pairs wonderfully with Gabimaru, who I have here, but I definitely feel like she's more of an accessory to Gabimaru opposed to being a fantastic standalone figure. Now the only reason why that is due to the lower articulation. The knees, you know, actually don't really have too much issue with that. I understand why, it's kind of big and it works pretty well, but it's more the upper hip area which kind of lets this figure down. I think if at the very least we got really nice thigh swivel as well, that would have elevated the articulation definitely enough to make it a lot more usable. I'm not really sure why it is so stiff. I actually did pop the leg off and have a look. I could move it, it's ever so slightly. So that is the main con with this figure. The hip area, connector, and the articulation, or lack of articulation there. And that's the only real thing that really lets this figure down. Overall, you know, really, you know, solid basic release. But I guess since I was really looking forward to her, that definitely lets me down a little bit, especially compared to the other figures which I've been checking out today. Now in saying that, she can definitely spread the legs out a lot further than what Indiana Jones can, and in some ways it is a bit better than him. But just having that lack of upper swivel there. Maybe other figures are really loose, maybe mine is super tight. So if you get this release, and you notice the articulation there, she can do huge thigh swivel, please do let me know. I'll definitely maybe add in some silicone oil or take it apart, or maybe look into it a bit further. But yeah, overall though, if you love Jigokuraku or Hell's Paradise, yeah, she's definitely worth picking up to go in with the other characters. And the next figure is Yuzuriha. Next month, I'm definitely looking forward to her. I'm hoping she has really good articulation since she is a Kuronichi ninja after all. But yeah, definitely let me know in the comments below what you think. And I also did do this in 4K. I've been playing around with some of the settings and changed camera as well. I'm not sure if I want to always do 4K, but if you're enjoying it, I also did it for Orochimaru, so check that out as well. If it's making it nicer to watch these reviews, maybe see it in better detail, and you want me to continue, please do let me know. And if there is anything else you'd like to see subtly different in the videos going forward, maybe a different lighting or any type of changes, maybe more close-ups or anything like that, please do let me know, because I do want to keep improving these videos further and further as we continue. But yeah, that is it for the video. I will take some photos of these figures at some point or another. All these releases lately is definitely taking up my time, but I'm definitely looking forward to getting some photos with these two together. So yeah, anyway, again, thank you very much for watching, and until next time, cheers!